Joining us via Skype is Midas, another way.
There's Ben.
Midas lead financial writer, Ben Smith. Hey, Ben. How are you?
How you doing, guys?
Ben, I'm Howard, by the way. I don't know if you've been watching. I'm just here helping. If I'm filling in, I'm hanging out with Ed. Ed knows what he's doing. And I've been told that you're not only the nicest person, but you really know what you're doing, too.
Well, I hope so. We'd have a problem if the lead financial writer doesn't know what he's talking about. So, I try to contribute the best I can. It's working out pretty well.
All right, well, I know that Ed's got some questions. I was just talking about marijuana stocks, and yesterday's close, they were said to push the TSX higher. Ed was just explaining that we've had a bit of a run in the market after Christmas. Where do you see marijuana stocks now that things, according to Ed, may be leveling off?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Ed here as well.
For some reason, I can't hear Ben. I can't hear Ben.
Of course, we had a big rally in the market. The benchmark ETF of the sector, the Horizons Medical Life Sciences ETF, was trading around $14 Canadian sometime in late or mid to late December. And of course, we've had a monster rally off that point, and it is now around $22.50. And that's an increase of 60–70%. So we've had a very, very big rally off the bottom. And yesterday we actually broke the February highs in HMMJ, but it wasn't done on very convincing volume, and we've fallen back through that level today. So that doesn't say necessarily that the rally's over, but it is one strike against it. It is one sort of benchmark that you can point that maybe exhaustion is taking place here. And, you could see it in some of the price action today. We've had a big sell-off in some of the tier one names. I think it's too early to make a call yet, but, along with the broad market rally as well, NYSE, NASDAQ, S&P, it is looking a little toppy to me.
Well, it's interesting. I want to ask about a couple of companies in particular in a second. But having said what you just said, a lot of people who are watching this are wanting to know, again, I know you can't give advice, but is it too late, in your opinion, to pop into the market, or should we just sort of ride out this, cooling off period? Yeah,
sure. Well, it really depends what your investing thesis is. First of all, if you're more geared towards short-term momentum trading, then there's always opportunities to get into the market at different places, pending different news cycles and different stocks. If you're more long-term oriented, I don't know if I would feel completely comfortable getting in here. I think I'd want to see a little bit of pullback now that the broad market has run so much, now that the marijuana sector has run so much. So you really have to know what your timelines are, more short, long term, and you also have to know what stocks you play. If you're just focused on tier one Canadian large cap marijuana stocks, then I think it is probably looking a little bit toppy here, irrespective of Aurora Cannabis's big move yesterday. But if you're in short-term names, some of the juniors out there, they can still run even if the broad market is down. So you really have to know what you're playing.
All right, well, you brought up Aurora Cannabis. Its stock was moving very heavily yesterday. They got some U.S. investment bank coverage. So you obviously, you think that's still a good deal, or is it time to just sort of wait and look and see? And that really wasn't. By the way, I know, Ben, that really wasn't a question. I just was saying some things that were in front of me. So what do you think about, what was the deal? What's the net of Aurora Cannabis and that heavy activity yesterday?
Well, that was really good news, Howard, really good news. And the reason being, I don't know if you recall or if you're following space in January, but Piper Jaffray, right when the market was sort of coming out of the abyss from the November, December sell-off, Aurora Cannabis, Canopy Growth got upgraded, or I think to outperform, and a higher price target in the $40 price target, I believe, by Piper Jaffray. And that's sent basically the stock in orbit. It took off like a rocket, so much so that 2 weeks later, after they made the original call, Piper Jaffray raised their price target again by another 50%, and that sent Canopy Growth up, another double-digit percentage points again. So The fact that this was big news for Aurora Cannabis because this was the first U.S. investment bank coverage in the name. Unlike Canopy Growth, who had been covered by Cowen, Tilray had been covered by Cowen, but Aurora Cannabis had no investment bank coverage. So now, it signals that some institutional investors could be coming on board. Of course, Cowen made Aurora Cannabis their top pick in the space. So it's big news. It means it's getting institutional U.S. exposure, and it's the first time it happened, and it's a big deal for the stock.
All right. Speaking of big deals, here's Ed with an actual question from somebody who knows what they're doing.
Hey, Ben, how you doing?
Good, Ed. How are you?
Good, good. So look, yesterday the HMMJ as an indicator was up nicely, and the S&P was down just a little bit. Today, the S&P is picking up some steam to the downside, and we've given up most of the gains we had in the HMMJ. So do you think we're correlating here? If the S&P starts to roll over a bit, do you think the marijuana stocks? I mean, look, we had lots of good action yesterday in the marijuana sector. Today, not so good.
Yeah, I do. Just because of the depth of the move of the broad markets to the upside. I mean, we're looking at close to 20% off the December lows itself as well, along with the cannabis sector. So I would say if we're looking at sort of a grinding move lower for a few weeks and it doesn't really make a decisive action, the marijuana space, cannabis stocks could tread water conceivably. They may not go down all that much. But I have a feeling that, with the softening economic data out there, yesterday's industrial production numbers, which signal actually a contraction in U.S. industrial production, and bad GDP numbers in Germany, Canada, you name it. It's quite obvious that the economic data is softening, and the market is really being held up by central bank inflows and job owning on trade. So it's not really a healthy structure right now. I think cannabis stocks could be at risk for a pullback, say to 18 or 19 on HMMJ if we get a serious broad market sell-off here, for sure.
Ben, you just sort of led into my next follow-up question. The news, when you just listen to the news, the economic news out of Europe, Canada, and now the U.S. there seems to be some clouds out there, economic clouds. So, I mean, I'm a little amazed that the market's rallied as much as it has when you consider what some of the pundits are saying about the economy.
Yeah, I've seen this. I've been around for a while, and I've seen the same things happen before. I mean, there's a lag effect happening here. I don't know if you're following the situation in China, but they dumped in, basically they added $4 trillion of liquidity a couple weeks ago in one of the biggest liquidity adds ever. And of course, recently we've seen the Federal Reserve, they announced that they're going to stop the quantitative tightening very soon, and that's with their balance sheet only at $4 trillion. Now, if you recall, a couple years ago or 18 months ago, they were signaling that they wanted to draw down the balance sheet to about 2.5 trillion from the 800 billion that it was previously before the U.S. housing crisis. So it's quite obvious that that they're doing this because the economy can't really withstand more money draining out of the system, more liquidity draining out of the system. So they're trying to stop that. So yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that the economic data is softening, and but it's being held up by a lot of job owning by Trump and a lot of liquidity add, and stopping the quantitative tightening, which is imminent, and of course the rates, which they have stopped going up as well.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned Trump, because in the news today they were talking about Trump meeting some of his projections, but falling short in terms of Trump promised to not add any debt, and yet they're now adding some debt for some short-term gain. Let's talk about a company that Midas letter people are familiar with, Namaste. Namaste. Let's talk to Ben about this company. Now, I understand the CEO, there was some turmoil in the company. What's your take on Namaste now as a play?
I would, quite honestly, I don't like to speak bad about the companies that we speak or speak ill of them, but I would stay away from Namaste personally, just because at least until some of their issues get cleared up.
So Namago is what you're saying.
It's not really a reflection of their balance, what they have on their balance sheet or anything like that. Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay, Ben. Are we keeping you from? Is that your program?
Nope.
You have a date? Are you going on a Skype date now, Ed or Ben? Come on, buddy.
I don't think so, but someone's really trying to reach me. But
so Namaste, you're saying the turmoil is reason to stay away from the company.
And they postponed their financials.
That's right.
They postponed their financials, and we know that's
a bad sign.
Well, I call a spade a spade.
I've been in the business 2 days. I know that's a bad sign.
Duh.
Exactly.
Hey, I got some good news for you, but I'm going to wait for a couple years to tell you.
Before we let you go, I know that we were talking about maybe some of the market's slowing down, but there's some select small caps that you would want to talk about that are still running. 48 North, we had them on yesterday. C21, NBUD. We'll talk a little bit about that before we let you go there, okay, Benny? And I know you're very busy, so we'll get to it.
Yeah, no, it just goes on into the narrative that I was talking about earlier, that even in the declining, even if the market sort of rolls over a little bit, it's going to make it hard for some of these small caps to run, of course. But we've seen quite a few of them, run up, even though the market's sort of been kind of treading water, edging higher a little bit. 48 North is one of them. It's made a huge move, almost a double, basically in the last month. James E. Wagner moved a little bit. It's been consolidating as well recently, and there's been a few others. NorthBud is another one. They got in with a MSO down in the United States. They announced that today. So we've seen a lot of action in the junior space. It's probably been more eventful than what's happening in the tier ones, as we've seen a lot of moves that are 60, 100%, 150%. Over the course of a couple weeks. So it's been quite amazing to watch. And I think that's where the action is going to be, over the next few weeks as the market sort of consolidates.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you for indulging my my inexperience today, Ben. You were talking about what people's strategies are when it comes to investing. Mine's very simple. It's WWED. What would Ed do? And that's all I'm doing.
All right,
Ben,
thanks, guys.
Nice to see you, Ben.
Nice seeing you, Ben.
Thanks a lot. We'll see you soon.
Very, very nice.